Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans, for fans, where all the content is absolutely free. Tonight, as always, we're coming to you in association with Forrest Precision Engineering. I'll be your host this evening, Rob Fawcett, and tonight we're going to be trying to explain the performance of the team against Hearts yesterday, but also look at what the future holds for us esteemed manager, Russell Martin. But before we get into that, I want to encourage you to visit the Gersnet website. Not only do we have our main website with a host of quality articles and online museum, but it also hosts our popular forums, which are a great place to keep up to date with the latest Rangers news and discussion. Tonight, as always, we are live on YouTube, and we'd ask that you continue to spread the word amongst your friends and family, share the pod on social media, subscribe to the channel, and stop by the forums and join in the chat there too. Now, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forrest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers and Gersnet for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They've also got a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand, and for more information on that, you can email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Now, joining me this evening, trying to make sense of all the madness that is currently going on at Rangers, both on and off the pitch, we've got Alan Rogers. Alan, good evening. How you doing, sir?
Good evening, gents. Not too bad. I must say, I'll just start off with saying I'm making a shock announcement. I don't like football anymore. I'm going to start, I don't know, I'll follow cricket or something. I like cricket now. So once I figure out, who's at whose end of the pitch and how many home runs they get, I'm going to join a cricket podcast. I've decided.
Absolutely. And the man, the veteran of Gersnet, who is dripping with anticipation to talk about the topics tonight is Mr. Stewart Weir. Welcome, Stewart. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Actually, you're talking to somebody who does do a cricket podcast. So let me head you off there at the pass. I was there first. Absolutely. I am like a horse in the starting stalls at Newmarket, or a dog in trap 2 at Shawfield, or Usain Bolt in the starting blocks. I cannot wait to get started.
So we're gonna keep that
Russell Martin. Why is he still here?
Well, I think we need to talk about the game a little bit, but absolutely, I think that is there'll be a nice little segue when we start to talk about the atmosphere in the stadium at that point. But I guess we'll just get straight in, and it wasn't really a surprise that we stuck with the same team, I guess, against Celtic. Stuart, Alan, I guess, would you have liked to have seen Cornelius or Chamiti come in? Or was it understandable that they were kind of stuck on the bench for this one, to be honest?
I mean, I kind of...
I'll let Alan go first on this one, because he's a cricket expert.
I'm going to regret saying that now. But listen, I kind of understand sticking with the formation. There was a very marginal improvement in the Old Firm game, in the sense that we at least kept a clean sheet and there was a bit of a fighting spirit in it. So I understand it. I mean, I'd have liked to have seen Cornelius start. Obviously he came on at half time, so that kind of shows you how well it was going. And he was playing well for Canada during the week, scored a good goal, his confidence would be high, ready to make his debut. But I'd like to have seen him start. But I can kind of understand the logic in terms of the same approach with Celtic as you have with Hearts coming to Ibrox, because Hearts obviously joined top of the league as well. So I didn't really have a huge problem with it right up until the first ball was kicked,
Yeah, sure. I know you wanted to jump in there, mate.
No. I was just going to say that I think the fact they stuck with the same team was almost, we are swimming in shark-infested waters, even a big ship passing you by is something to cling on to. And I just think he was looking for something to cling on to after that result last week, or the last time out against Celtic. I just think it basically, supported every argument about Rangers lacking in confidence and belief that he would stick with that team. I mean, to be honest, Derek Cornelius scores a fantastic free kick in midweek against Wales, plays for a better team and in a better team in midweek than he does, for Rangers. I mean, why would he be picked? I mean, honestly, you're looking to improve your side. You're looking to bring better players in. You're looking to bring people in that actually have a bit of confidence about them. And he leaves them stuck on the bench. For me, that was just completely unfathomable. And the fact was, he brings them on when you're a goal down. He brings them on at half time. I'll tell you what. I'll just use this machete to cut another and put another dig in my arm and rub more salt into it. I mean, it's almost like he's just toying with people's emotions to try and rile them as much as possible before still or continue to do his thing.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the thing that really surprised me, and I guess I thought he actually had gone back to the shape before the Celtic game. So it looked as if Diamandi and Asgard were playing higher up the pitch, and it was just Barron that was sitting. But I think the interesting thing for me watching the game was listening to Asgard talking about his preferred position as left wing or the left hand side eight. And then for the majority of the first half, he was playing on the right hand side. And it just really smacked of that seems to be the decisions that the manager's making at the moment that doesn't seem to be helping his case any. He's trying to continually fit round pegs in square holes, and it's just not working, and he's not getting the best out of players who went away on international duty. You know, Asgard scores 4, Raskin scores his first goal for Belgium, Cornelius scores, and they come back and play in a Rangers jersey, or in Raskin's case, don't play in a Rangers jersey, and don't even look an inch of the player that they are for their international team. And that's the thing that really frustrated me, because you think after the window closing, having a bit more time in the grass, as he likes to say, with the players, we'd have a fast start and we'd get out and be in Hearts' faces. And it was the opposite way about. I mean, we were terrible in that first half. We were far too slow with the ball. Passing was terrible. We created nothing of great intent. And Hearts were the ones that were actually trying to push things and get in our faces. And I think some of that obviously needs to be attributed to the manager, Alan, but equally, players themselves can't be missed in this situation either, because they're the ones that step onto the pitch, and that lack of movement and pace with the ball surely has got to be down to them. They're not coached to take 50 touches and then pass it sideways.
No, I mean, it's about balance. And, you know, over recent years, we've had scenarios whereby results aren't going well, managers under pressure, and the fans take it out on the players because the players just aren't functioning, they're not doing the basics well. But in this situation we're in at the minute, I'd say 90% of the fans' ire is aimed at the manager, because we're in that position of thinking, we've actually signed some reasonably decent players. You say, they're away on international teams, they're doing well for international teams. There's a level of quality there, but we're just not seeing it, as you alluded to. When they come back, they're trained by the Ibrox coaching staff. They just can't produce. And I think fans can now see that these players do not like the way they're being asked to play. Now, does that completely excuse them? No, because again, they're just not doing the basics well. But I don't think for 1 second that Suter and Giga, or whoever is playing at centre half, wants to be rolling it between the two of them, whilst the opposition just sits back and waits for them to get the ball back. Because that's what happens. Mm-hmm. You know, the whole theory behind Russell Martin's approach is, we play it round the back, that will draw the opposition onto us, that will leave gaps, we play through the gaps and all the rest of it. But the counter to that is what every Scottish manager that's faced Russell Martin so far, including Stephen Presley, is, well, when you've got the ball, we'll just sit back, we're not going to try and win it off you. And then it just completely baffles the whole approach. And you can see the players are sort of, we're not really dealing with this, we don't know how to approach this. And then, of course, when you go a goal down, the formations change, as they did on Saturday, systems change, players swap positions, and it's just kind of throwing crap at the wall and seeing if something sticks. So whilst I don't think we can excuse the players, I do think it's so demonstrably obvious that they're being asked to play in a way that they are not enjoying and they are not capable of, and crucially, isn't going to work in this league.
I think it was interesting what you're saying. I saw a graphic from somebody on Twitter earlier today, just around the average positions of the team, and it was so congested and narrow, and you could kind of see that in that first half as well, where we didn't have much movement in the forward positions to be able to even try and make a pass forward when we did have the ball. We were kind of almost tripping up on each other when players were trying to occupy the same position, and it did just look a big disorganised mess, Stuart. And I guess that's got to come down to the manager. Either trying to fill these players' heads with too much information and overcomplicate the game of football. But it's also the fact that, he's had, what is this now, 12, 13 games, and we're still not even getting the basics right under him. So while we will have some frustrations with the player, the players, he's either got to change, and there's no signs that he will do that, or we've just got to get rid of him.
I think you look at players who are terrified, and I know Russell Martin made some sort of reference to that, but I think they're terrified in a way that they are frightened to make a mistake because the crowd will get on their back. But I also wonder how fearful they are of what they're going to get when they go into the dressing room or back into training, or whether they're just going to suddenly find themselves dropped because they haven't carried out implicit instructions. I mean, I've seen a hell of a lot of football over the years, and I've seen a hell of a lot of Rangers games. And the one thing you could pick from all the decent sides that Rangers have had is the on-field management. So much of that came from the players. So much of it came from whoever was the guy in midfield, whether that was, Ian Ferguson or Stuart McCall or Edu or, Barry Ferguson, whoever it was, there was a responsibility that they would manage what was happening on the field because they were confident. One, they were confident in their own ability, but secondly, they were also confident that they knew what to do at a particular time and would do it. If it didn't come off, fine, they would incur the wrath of the manager or whoever. But guys like Alberts and Van Bronckhorst and all these other guys, they took it upon themselves to do certain things. Mm-hmm. So if somebody left a gap or a void, they'd fill it in. Basic stuff. Or if somebody went right, they'd go left. Or somebody went forward, they hold back. Very, very basic stuff. And you look at Rangers players, and if somebody goes forward, they hold back. But that's not through choice or knowledge. That's because they're frightened to join them in attack. So you end up with people getting isolated when they do go forward. And as a result, if the ball comes back the other way, they're equally isolated because they're on their own. And I just wonder what the messaging is within the dressing room at Rangers. As I say, I've watched a hell of a lot of matches over the years. I've also had the good fortune to be able to sit with managers on the record, off the record, hear what their philosophy is. Dick Advocat building his team in like two sides. This is my right side, this is my left side. These are the players I want on the left, these are the players I want on the right, and putting the two together and suddenly come up with a really good team. I don't see any of that under Russell Martin. Nothing whatsoever. You might use the word disjointed earlier on. I mean, it is utterly, it's like a jigsaw without a lid. It's like three jigsaws in the one box without a lid. You don't know what it is they're trying to do or what the picture's going to be.
And I think that plays into a little bit into some of his post-match comments. So maybe what we actually need to be doing is just, rather than watching the games at the weekend, go to Auckland and watch the training sessions, because allegedly they're brilliant in training. But that matters not a jot when they can't put those performances on, and if they can't handle doing it on the pitch. I guess this is also where attention needs to be turned to the people doing the recruitment, because if we're recruiting players that can't handle playing for the size and scale of a club like ours and have anxiety when they step onto the football pitch, then that's a big issue in itself, is it not, Alan? Because we've spent a lot of money to back Martin, and if they're allegedly so good in training, is it a mentality thing from the players, or like Stuart's just said, is it the fact that they're so scared of reaction both from fans and from management if they do make a mistake?
Well, I mean, I think that there's two aspects to it. I think they're scared to an extent because you saw it on Saturday. It was Chermiti when he came on. He dropped right back to the halfway line. He had his back to goal. He played a pass. It was a bad pass. Hearts picked it up and were straight through and goal and easily could have scored. That's the high-risk game that Russell Martin has us playing. How many times this season already have we seen a bad pass at the back that's led to a direct chance for the opposition? It happens all the time. So I think there's a nervousness around, if I give this ball away, we're so open at the back that it might well be a goal for the opposition. And I think that feeds into a certain nervousness. I think at times this season we have seen players almost abandon the system and take it on themselves. The best chance we had on Saturday was Tavernier picking the ball up, driving right through the midfield, driving to the edge of the box. He laid it off to Gassama, who hit a shot and came off the post. So actually a really good shot, in fairness. That is not what Tavernier's been asked to do in this system. But I think that was just a case of, we need to try something. And then obviously we changed, went to 3 at the back, went to 2 up front, all this kind of stuff. It was just a mishmash of tactics. Yeah. But I don't think the anxiety thing washes whatsoever. I think that is an absolute cop-out from the manager because, and you'll all have seen it on Twitter, people have pulled quotes from Russell Martin's time at Swansea, at MK Dons, and at Southampton, where he says the exact same thing when results aren't going well. They're just, it's anxiety, it's anxious, it's anxious. I mean, come off it.
It's not the tactics. It's not the tactics. It's the players' anxiety.
These guys are too afraid to do it. I'm telling them, that's not absolute nonsense, and it's the absolute hallmark of a manager that is, as Stewart put it, swimming in shark-infested waters. He knows he's circling the drain, and I'm just going to keep mixing my metaphors, but that is what he's doing. He's grasping for his go-to excuse, which at his last 3 clubs has always been there's anxiety. And it doesn't wash. These players are not anxious about playing Hearts at Ibrox. They're not anxious about playing Dundee at Ibrox. They're professional footballers. Many of them are international players. That's just bollocks. I'm sorry, but it is.
The only time it's almost like he's a playbook, and he probably does have a playbook, and he's thumbing through it, and he gets the E for excuses, and it's almost like, so what did they buy the last time? Well, Swansea said this, said that, then I'll go with this, and the way things are constructed these days, you cannot say anything out of turn, or you cannot say anything without it being recorded somewhere. So he's just, basically sticking the poker in the fire and rumbling it up a bit to see if he can get some flames of life back out and actually make himself sound convincing. But the only time I've ever heard people saying I'm doing brilliant in practice, and I just cannot do it when I'm in the big matches, are snooker players. And that is down to stress and down to nervousness. These guys can knock balls off the lampshades into pockets and make 147s and century breaks, frame after frame after frame after frame. They go in front of the TV cameras and they just freeze. And that is the only other sport that I know that I've heard people saying, oh, they're doing brilliant in practice. What? Who in their right mind believes that you do well in practice, but when it comes the big moment to step out in front of 50,000 people, you just cannot do it? The Formula One drivers do fantastically well when they're driving around Asda car park and then get stuck in a Ferrari and can't drive, well, apart from Lewis Hamilton. But the fact of the matter is, it's just a totally lame excuse for somebody who can hear the giant clock in the background ticking away before the tumbleweed comes through and the bell tolls and his time's up. If he's looking for his money, just pay him and let it be gone. And whilst you're at it, the 2 guys that one that's predicted this fantastic team that sounded like Real Madrid in the 1960s, and the other guy who basically rates him up there with Pep Guardiola, everybody else, every other great coach I've ever met, they should go as well. Because remember how long they waited from Clement left the club and how long they waited during the summer before making the appointment. They too are culpable for everything that's going on at Ibrox as well, not just the mad manager.
And I think you can see that with the fans at the moment as well, Stuart, to be honest, because there are now more people turning their attention to Patrick Stewart and Kevin Felwell. And again, that was that was kind of where I was going with the recruitment bit, because ultimately Martin is the head coach, he's not the manager. He isn't I'm assuming he isn't going to be the man that will be identifying a lot of the targets that we had from a transfer perspective, even though he should be signing off on them coming in. And if both Thelwell and Stewart, along with Kavanagh and Parath Magath, are backing this manager at the moment, then it showcases that we've maybe got a little bit more to worry about than just the manager. Because how anybody could look at the situation, I guess, we're in, Alan, a Rangers team sitting 10th in the league, coming up to the middle of September, it's just nowhere near acceptable without any form of shoots of improvement in a team. And if anything, we seem to be getting worse game by game.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue. We were always ready that this season might be a bit of a roller coaster. We kind of knew that. We wanted a whole new squad. We've got 12 new signings, new manager, new owners, all this kind of stuff. We all expected some turmoil. But even in our wildest nightmares, did any of us think we would be sitting 10th at this juncture? And if over the next couple of weeks, if other results go certain ways, by the time we take to the pitch in our next league game, we could very well be bottom. Now, in my lifetime, I'm not sure I've ever seen a Rangers team bottom of the league. Unless it's week one when we've not played yet or something like that. I don't think that's ever happened in my lifetime, and that becomes red alert panic stations. And for the owners to say we're backing them now, we'll get to whether that's just a holding phrase for now, we'll see. But that is not something that the fans will tolerate. And I think in that sense, that's why Russell Martin, I think, is so unpopular, because he takes so little responsibility for this situation. Mm-hmm. He's constantly trying to pin it on players, individual players, and fans. The whole anxiety line, again, it's got that undercurrent of the fans are making them anxious. And that's it's completely fractured the relationship he had with the fans, which wasn't great to start with. And it's just, there's so many different ingredients that all spell disaster here. And that's why it's important a decision is made now before it's allowed to get worse. This is much, much worse than anything under Pedro Caixinha or the latter days of Beale or the latter days of Clement. It's levels worse than anything we've seen under any of those managers. And that's after a significant investment in the playing squad. This is DEFCON 1, and they need to.
Yeah, and I think. Sorry. Just what you're saying there, Alan. I mean, the whole thing is, and this is, who's to blame, right? Martin is not either communicating or getting his message across, or he seems tactically inept as well, I have to say. Basic things that you would change during the course of a game, he doesn't seem to see it, while the fans see it. And worse still, opposition coaches and managers see it. They pick the failings of Rangers during the game and they go and exploit that. But the two other guys, Stewart and Thelwell, are going to come out and defend him because ultimately he's their appointment. Now, Thelwell, I will actually give an excuse note to here, because you cannot make reference to the players that are going on international duty and performing at international duty, but when they come back to Ibrox, they cannot kick their own arse. If you look at Asgard scoring 4 goals for Norway, yet he doesn't do it when he gets back to Ibrox. Why? Because they're not playing to his strengths. They're not giving him the area or the position to play in. You look at, other people, they are lacking in belief. And the amount of times people, you notice it, if you start watching for it, you'll notice it during games. The amount of times people look to the bench to see what direction they're getting is incredible. Those guys should be able to manage themselves on the pitch and actually, look at certain things, what's happening on the pitch. And for me, the most telling thing of all over the last day or day and a bit has been the response of Tavernier. Now, I am no great fan of Tavernier, but here is a guy who sat yesterday at a press conference, and if he'd stood up and said, it wasn't me, it was a big boy that did it and run away. For once, I would actually have believed him because he actually looked at his wits' end to try and explain what was happening at Rangers. Because I think even he sees it's not down to me making a mistake or somebody else making a mistake. This is a collective. And the reason it's a collective is because Russell Martin has put this team together and cannot manage it. And that, for me, is a particularly worrying bit. Because going forward, Rangers are 90 minutes away from their season being down to one domestic tournament. And we're not even out of September. Nobody predicted where Rangers would be in the league, but nobody predicted Rangers being in a situation where domestically you could have the Scottish Cup to aim for, and that doesn't start until December, and that's all you've got in your own backyard. It's a shambles of a situation.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely...
Sorry, Rob, but I mean, I completely agree with that. And the real smoking gun for Russell Martin is, if you look back on his time at Southampton, his time at Swansea, his time at NK Dons, this is exactly how it panned out. You know, when he was appointed, various Rangers podcasts had supporters from those teams on. They were all talking about it. This is what he does. He will put the players in this system. They're not suited to it. He will vehemently stick to it. He will not waver. He'll insist that his ways are correct. He'll blame the fans. He'll get shirty with the press. It'll be collapsing in front of his eyes, and he will be belligerent and simply not change. That is why the fans are so clearly in the know that this is a coaching problem, because this is exactly how he coaches, and we have that evidence.
Yeah, and I think you've got...
Sorry, Rob, can I just say one thing here? And I said this last night. There are managers who have been at Rangers really full of their own self-importance, right? And, you know, but see, when you put facts and statistics and records in front of them, everybody that I've known has actually yielded to that criticism or that analysis because it's there in black and white in front of you. Russell Martin is completely unaware of anything that's happening, and it's almost like full steam ahead. I know what I'm doing. Don't speak to me. You'll put me off. I'm just getting into the zone now, and here we go again. And it's like he is completely unaware. He's unaware of the criticism, and he's unaware of the criticism at every single level, especially amongst the fans. And his attitude yesterday to, well, you didn't want me here, didn't want me here to start with. That is typical of somebody who has dismissed the supporters, what they do, what they say, how they sound, because he is going to continue to do it his way, by hook or by crook. Don't give him the information. Sorry, Russell, we're a wee bit low in altitude here. We need to just pick up the nose and fly over these mountains. No. I know what I'm doing. Because we hit this face of this mountain, at least we're all going the same way. And he's got some kind of ism about him. I don't know, I'm not quite sure what it is, but you're seeing it. It's evident that it's there. Because as Alan rightly points out, the evidence, the back catalogue of what he's done at other clubs and what other clubs, the supporters of those clubs have said, even before a ball was kicked, is all coming. It's alarming that it's all coming true now. And you do wonder, did anybody take any recognition of what was said? Remember, he was an outstanding candidate. Who the fuck was second?
Well, it was Mr. Ancelotti, wasn't it? Who's over? Where is he? Is he in Brazil now? Isn't he?
He was trying walnuts in a fake tan studio. I don't know, but he was second best to this guy.
No, and I think that's the scary thing about the process is that if he was the outstanding candidate, because again, I think when he was appointed, I've been quite honest on this show and said that I wasn't exactly overwhelmed, but I was willing to give him a chance. I think there was a majority of fans that were like that weren't exactly excited by the appointment, but just said, you know something, he's the manager, we'll get behind him, we'll support him, and we were hoping that we would see something that we could get behind. You know, apart from 60 minutes of football in the course of the last 13, 14 games, we've seen nothing. And that's ultimately what has turned a lot of the fan base off. It's not It's not Martin and the preconceived ideas that many folk have of him. It's just because he's not a very good football manager and is dragging the club down with him, which is really unfortunate. But I'm not going to put up a defence, but I think decisions can definitely change the way a game goes. And I think if we take away how bad we were yesterday, and don't get me wrong, I still think that over the course of it, Hearts probably deserved to edge the game. But there were three big calls during that game yesterday that need to be looked at a little bit, because the first goal in the stadium looked a clear handball, and I think everybody I was sitting next to was surprised that wasn't brought back and looked at and chopped off eventually. And even watching it back in replays, I still can't believe how that wasn't given. You've then got the goal that we score from a corner, which is given for a foul, I think, on the keeper. Again, didn't get a good view of it in the stadium, but saw the replays, and I'm struggling to find out where the offence is there. And then you can say the second goal that Hart scored is a dubious penalty, although my view, I did think it looked a penalty. On the replays, I think there is a bit more dubiety. But when things are really going bad for you, they're going bad for you, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where Rangers are at the minute. I mean, I think it's, if you actually watch the replay of the Shankland after the goal, it looks to me like he's saying to a few of his teammates, that's going to get chopped. You know, because it's an obvious handball. You saw Tavernier after the goal arguing with McLean for about 90 seconds and getting booked because it was so blatantly obvious. Everybody saw it handball. It was a handball. The referee saw it was a handball. But for whatever reason that we ought not to speculate about, he let it go. And that is just where Rangers are at the minute. Keep in mind that Rangers Football Club are the only team I've ever seen have a goal disallowed when it goes into the net and actually rolls up the net. And then they come back and say, well, we couldn't tell if it was in or not. And I know that was last season, but that is the level of officiating that we're having to deal with. And the other two were exactly the same. I looked at the replay. There's no foul on the Hearts keeper, sorry. There's no foul on him. That should have been a goal. And the penalty, much like you, in real time, I thought it was a penalty. I thought his legs had been taken away. When you look at the replay, there's no contact. The guy takes a dive. So when and how does VAR get involved in this? We used to send referees to the monitor to look at these things. We don't really do that anymore. Why not?
What happened today?
Well, yeah. Let's not mention that. But again, you know, that's the situation where the inconsistency in terms of sending the ref to the monitor. Nobody knows what the rules are anymore. But what we do know is the rules seem to be applied in whatever way screws Rangers over the most. And that is something that goes right the way back several seasons, including multiple Old Firm games under Philippe Clement, who, for all his failings as a manager, got consistently shafted by refereeing decisions in big games, including cup finals, more than one. So, you know, the officiating needs to be sorted out. How bad Rangers are at the moment, and Russell Martin taking the fire will probably mask some of that. But whenever we come out the other side of this whole fiasco, the club still need to be raising serious questions about the level of officiating, because it's nowhere near good enough.
Yeah, and the thing was, they ran over to the monitor today and had to pick up the remote control and go, oh, wait a minute, that's Songs of Praise. No, that's the Jungle Book. No, that's the Disney Channel. Where's the game? What channel's it on? Oh, aye, that looks like I can't see it now. Get a wee wipe. It doesn't, you know, the rain's hitting the monitor. You know, listen, I completely agree for once. The officiating doesn't surprise me because, you know, as somebody said today, after our talk about the Kilmarnock game and a decision made in that, there's no surprise about decisions that has been made. It's why World Cups and European Championships are played without any Scottish referees or officials being there, because they're so bad. They are absolutely rank rotten. The thing is, we can't get rid of them because there's nobody to take their place. And I'm sorry, but you're basically stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to officials. I don't think they're helped because, and I said this when VAR was introduced in Scotland, if you are an official, you have got to understand what you're looking at to start with. And just because you've got a television in front of me doesn't mean to say that you're actually going to work out what it is you're looking at. So from top to bottom, there needs to be a clear out, but ultimately it affects you in one particular game. And even if, you know, even if they come out and say, well, we're really sorry, we made 2 mistakes, the fact is, it doesn't help you because you don't get to replay the game. It's done and dusted, and you've lost that match. So, again, when things are going badly, they do go badly. If it wasn't for bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck. And I think that's where Rangers find themselves just now.
Yeah, and by the way, this is no means me trying to put up a defence for Mr. Martin, because I think we're all unanimous here that it's only going to be a matter of when, not if. Because I, for one, just cannot see a light switch being flicked and all of a sudden the team change, because I'm dreading the Hibs game coming up. Because again, like you say, Stuart, the potential there that we lose that game, that's effectively season done, and we've got the Scottish Cup to look forward to, which is just not an acceptable position for a club like ours to be in this early stage of the season. And I think the manager's position is made clear when you've got opposition fans that are singing you're getting sacked in the morning, and then all of the home support decide to join in that. And ultimately, it's very difficult for a manager to survive that. But I guess the question goes to, if he does get bulleted, what happens then? Who would take over as an interim manager? Who would we be looking to target as a replacement? Now, I've got my own thoughts on that, but it'd be interesting to get yours first, Stuart, and then maybe yours, Alan.
One of my first, suddenly. Listen, I was critical when, at the end of last season, Barry Ferguson got the gig, and my reason for that was, but I realised why they did it, because they wanted to bring, so as I called it, Rangersness back into the team, because there was no belief there was no understanding of what it was to play for Rangers. And to be fair, Barry and his sort of dream team did instill some of that along the way. But compared to what's going on just now, I mean, Barry Ferguson looks like Otmar Hitzfeld, and it's like, where do you go after this? Now, I think Rangers really ballsed up manager wise 2 picks ago when Souness said he would go for Lampard, and they didn't. They went for Clement, and look what happened there. Now, Lampard had a dreadful track record at Everton and at Chelsea, but there was something there that plenty of people could see, and a lot of managers and former managers and people that know about these kind of things all said that for different reasons Lampard didn't get the hand he should have been dealt. If you look at what he did at Derby for a long period at Derby, he was really very, very good in bringing them back to the fore, and he should have been maybe given longer at Chelsea or whatever. By the by, where do Rangers go? There are managers out there who could improve Rangers, but the fact is, what do Rangers do for finance? We were told that these guys were coming in from the good old US of A, and they had squillions to spend. I haven't found out whether that was squillions of pounds, squillions of dollars, Italian lira, Turkish lira. I'm not quite sure. But the thing is, if they make any changes now and make any moves now, it's going to cost them money. And that is money that they didn't expect to be spending. So, are there managers there? Yes. But you need to then convince a manager to come in and say, right, first and foremost, before you get any money to spend in January or next summer, you have got to make this bunch that they've got play and play in a certain style and come up with certain results. And I don't know how many managers out there would actually say, yeah, that's the gig for me, unless they were unemployed and desperate. Mm-hmm. So you really are in a very, very difficult place just now. The guy, people say, you can try this guy, try that guy. You can try half a dozen people, but you don't get to run parallel seasons, if so to speak. It's not like your PlayStation where you can invent yourself as 5 different managers and play different scenarios out and see what one's best and go all the way. You've got one chance at it. So it's a high risk appointment now. But all I would say, it has to be better. It has to be better than where Rangers are at just now.
I agree with that, Alan. I guess. Have you got any thoughts on that one, mate?
Well, I mean, it's one of these things, right? Russell Martin's going to get sacked at some point soon. It's going to happen. We've seen it with the previous managers. It gets to the point it's too far gone. Even if we beat Hibs, even if we beat Genk, even if we beat Livingston, the next game we lose, the next game we drop points, the fans will just be, yep, told you so, sack him now. That's what's going to happen. You don't get back from this precipice. So that's why it's really important that the board just pull the trigger now and have to do that. Now, I'm still, hoping against hope that we get some sort of announcement early this week. The game was just yesterday. It's a Sunday. Owners are a different continent. All this stuff. I'm sure there'll be discussions in the background. And as we all know from our lines of work, when someone's been dismissed, there are processes that need to be followed. Legal boxes need to be ticked. Agents in football need to be dealt with. All this kind of stuff. I'm still hopeful it's going to happen. But it will happen at some point. It's completely inevitable, and we all know that, including Russell Martin, I think. Now, in terms of an interim, you think back to Gio under pressure in the dugout, and suddenly, out of nowhere, there was Michael Beale in the stadium. So think about Saturday. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there's Bonnie Blue in the stadium. So, history has a way of repeating itself. Yeah. So maybe that's what we're thinking outside the box. She would certainly unite the dressing room, but she would also blow the budget. So, we can't really rely on her. But
and Rangers still wouldn't know what to do in the box.
Yeah, well, that's
keep it PG, folks. I'm desperately trying not to make any jokes myself, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is that bus must stink, absolutely stink. But anyway, in terms of an interim, you're looking at people like that kind of Barry Ferguson, that kind of Rangers-itis squad. They did some good things. There was some good moments, but there was also a lot of really bad results there. We can't shy away from that. If the Rangers job becomes available, put it out there to applicants and see who applies. Just, that's what I would want the process to be. The last few management appointments we've had, Clement was the only one that was really slightly out of left field. The rest were all sort of candidates on our doorstep, and with Russell Martin, it's the case of, well, we had a long process. We had 4 months, we had 7 interviews, and he was the outstanding candidate. And you're trying to tell me the outstanding candidate was an ex-Rangers player who just happened to be unemployed, who used to manage in the league that the director of football comes from. Is that a worldwide search? Obviously it's not. They've just gone, let's get a bloke we know. So I'd just like to see applications opened up and just see who applies for these kind of things. Back in the day, when Beale came in and Gio came in, apparently we were talking to guys like Tedesco and Farioli, and the guy with the long hair, the slick back hair, whose name completely escapes me. All these managers allegedly were spoken to. Obviously, we've spoken about Lampard as well, who's in the running. Kevin Muscat was in the running. All this kind of stuff. The Rangers job should be a coveted managerial position, and I'm sure it still is, despite all the turmoil. So let's see who applies. Let's not just narrow our focus on blokes we know and ex-players. Let's try and get something a little bit out of left field that might be able to actually bring the revolution that we all want. Maybe Ancelotti Senior would have been the man. But we always get that flavour that he was a wee bit not quite committed, and didn't really know. And I know he's managing Brazil. He's doing okay in Brazil, I should say. But, something like that, something that would get immediate buy-in from the fans that Russell Martin never had, would just be a step in the right direction straight away.
I mean, for me, it probably doesn't fit with what you were saying there about people that Kevin Thelwell and Dan Purdino, but you've got a manager that's sitting there unemployed that actually talks a lot of sense around modern football, which is Sean Dyche. Again, I know you might do that, but again, when you listen to some of his analysis on football, he is actually quite a clever manager. He would get them organised, and maybe provide a little bit of grit and determination, which is what we need in this team at the moment. But that's why we're not in charge of the managerial search, and it's up to Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart to lead that, I guess. Or should it be? Is this something that you think, is it Greta Steinson might be involved in from the 49ers group? Because
sorry, Clay jumped in there, but just what occurred to me, we had this a good few seasons ago when Pedro came in. Everybody knew that Pedro was somebody that the Parks had put forward, seemingly through Graham Park and Pedro Mendes and all this kind of stuff. That obviously fell apart. And then after that, Dave King allegedly came in and said, no, I'm picking the next guy. And he went down, his picture at Anfield, and he was the one that brokered the whole Gerrard thing. So something like that wouldn't surprise me. If Patrick Stewart and Thelwell were the guys that identified Russell Martin and really pushed for him, there's already a rumour that Steinson didn't want Russell Martin, but was outvoted. Give it to Steinson and say, right, okay, this is your call now. We'll go with who you choose, and then see who we can bring in. Because, giving Thelwell and Stewart the chance to do it again, and see the thing with Dyche is, again, it's an ex-Everton guy.
Yeah,
Thelwell needs and Purdy need to get away from this. I think we need to get away from this English League focus and say, well, he did okay in England, that means he'll scoosh it in Scotland. That is not the case. And I just think we need a complete clean slate from a manager. And that's what would I think get the fans on side again.
Don't know if you get any more closing thoughts on that one, Stuart. What do you think?
No, again, people say, well, what would you do? I do consultancy on certain things, and the first thing I ask is how much am I getting paid before I start telling somebody what to do.
Yeah.
And you could make decisions and you could make suggestions. Would they be listened to? I very much doubt it. I think there's people in there that are decision makers that are so busy. They're in the same. They're going down a different plug hole to what Martin's going down to, because they picked this guy and put him in that position. So they're having to come up or think twice as fast as what he is. The Sean Dyche one, but what personally, I always thought that somebody like David Moyes would have actually, scooshed it, but it wasn't beating the doors down to get to Ibrox. And, there might have been other reasons for that. But I think that's the kind of manager that you could have been looking for. Now, again, hindsight's always 2020. This would have been umpteen years ago or a few years ago. Graham Potter, and he'd been available at Brighton. Yeah, let's go for him. And look what happened to him. I'm fearful that actually somebody at Ibrox might be saying, well, Graham Potter about a job very soon. It'll not cost us any money. We could bring him in because he's got a good reputation. And he could work with David Weir as well. No, let's not go there. There are other coaches and other managers out there who could do a significant job. The thing that's particularly galling, I would have to say, for Rangers fans is that so far this season, all these excuses, it's a new bunch of players, it's a new manager, it's new ways, it's this new, it's that new. Yeah. The galling thing is there are 3 teams that Rangers haven't beaten who all have new managers during the summer as well, and they all look far, far more stable and settled, and as they had half an idea of what they were doing than Rangers did. Again, that then comes down to what the coach is doing.
I think that's where most fans are, to be honest, mate. And I guess this probably brings me on to the last point that I was going to make on whether any of us think there's any way back for Martin. I mean, I'm just looking at the next 6 fixtures that we've got. Obviously, we've got Hibs coming up this coming weekend. Then we play Genk, Livy, Sturm Graz, Falkirk, and then Dundee United. God forbid he was to put a run of six wins on the trot. Is that enough? Is that enough to buy him time? Or do you think, as a fan base, we are just completely and utterly done with him, and all it's doing is going to kick the can down the road until the next run of bad results that we get under him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's cooked. I've never seen the fans turn on a Rangers manager the way they've turned on Russell Martin.
No,
almost right from kickoff. And he got plaudits for Panathinaikos. He got plaudits for the Pilsen game, even getting us through the Pilsen ties. Pretty good, but the domestic results cannot be ignored, and there is absolutely no optimism within the fan base. They're actively chanting his name, telling him to GTF. There's banners being hung on gates telling him to get out. There's every goal we concede, it's the same chant. Getting sacked in the morning, as we spoke about earlier on. He's getting booed when he takes to the pitch. He's getting booed up the tunnel. I mean, there is no way back for Russell Martin, none whatsoever. As I said earlier on, that run of games, okay, teams like Genk and Sturm Graz maybe a wee bit of an unknown quantity, but with the greatest respect, they're not European powerhouses. Rangers can get results against those sorts of teams. But as soon as we end up going to Easter Road, the Tawdry, December's a difficult month, all this kind of stuff. You just cannot see this squad doing that and getting through those kind of types of fixtures. And by that point, by December, January, the league is well and truly gone. Now, even though at the moment, given how far we are behind, it looks grim, but it is still salvageable if a decision is made quickly and there's a reversal of fortune. As I say, this squad is better than we're seeing. You know, it might not be a title-winning squad, but it's certainly not a 10th place in the league squad. It's better than that. So a quick decision could still salvage something. But we saw it with Clement and with Beale and with Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Dawdling and delaying the decision is what pushes you over the edge of the cliff. Yeah, we all had Patrick Stewart. He's back in Clement. This is we're committed to this. He's got a new contract. Then the results just got too bad, and 2 weeks later he's out. You know, that's what I think will happen to Russell Martin. Whether it's Hibs on Saturday, you know, Martin Boyle playing against that defence. I mean, he is going to be absolutely up for it, and he knows exactly how to score against us anyway. Whether it's Hibs, whether it's Livy, whether it's Graz, whatever it may be, there will come a point whereby they just can't back him anymore. And it's just going to get more and more uncomfortable for him. And I should say, right, and I feel like I should say this as my closing comment, I'm pretty uncomfortable with with that kind of pile on a Rangers manager, right? I don't like it. I don't like sitting in the stadium when those chants are aimed at him, there's 50,000 singing it, and he's just standing there with his hands in his pockets. He must feel like the loneliest man in the world. And I do sympathise in a sense, because he didn't appoint himself. He's doing what he's always done. This is what he thinks is going to work. It's not working. It's blown up in his face, and he's got to stand there and take it. It is a difficult situation to be in. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's just misguided and a bit overconfident. So I'm always uncomfortable when the stadium turns on a manager like that. And I just think that press conference he had, I mean, there's a couple of fan media there, asked him really difficult questions, and he couldn't really answer them. He got a bit snippy with them. He got a bit condescending. You know, it's over. It is done. He's not coming back from it. We need to put him out of his misery for our sake, for the club's sake, and for his sake.
It began to sound like what Clement did in his last games and previous other Rangers managers. It's almost as if they start to gibber. The madness starts to take over, and it just starts spouting words. It's like word spaghetti when they have a press conference. You don't know what's going to come out, and eventually the spaghetti's long enough that they actually hang themselves. You know what I mean? It's a sad situation to be in, but again, if you have forked out your season ticket money, which the majority of fans will have done, you give that money over in good faith that things are going to be better. It is not, you know, and if you'd gone to a concert or you'd bought a car or whatever it was and you were unhappy with that, you'd be entitled to voice your concerns and voice that disappointment. So I don't see why football should be any different. He doesn't help himself. He does not help himself. He makes, and I said weeks ago, he's right and everybody else is a fool. It doesn't matter if you've followed Rangers for 50 years. It doesn't matter if you've been paid to watch 4,000 football matches and therefore have an idea of what's going on. It doesn't matter if you've been in deep conversation with previous Rangers managers like Souness and Walter Smith and Dick Advocat, who would all give you their thinking if you give them half an hour to do so, and you were having a beer while you're doing pre-season training or sitting in an airport, they would all give you their philosophy. And none of them have ever came across like Martin comes across. And I say, even at the worst days of some of the Rangers managers of late, if you put the evidence in front of them, they'll say, yeah, it doesn't look good. Martin is incapable of that. And I don't think anybody will ever forgive him for that.
No,
to be honest, I'm starting to think this cricket podcast sounds like a good idea. You know,
I'll give you a question before you go, see if you're up for it. Yeah. How many ways can you be out at cricket?
You're in or you're out?
No. Right, if you're giving out how many ways, you don't know, you're not in it then.
Right. Do they still do that nice kind of hoovering stuff with the bat in the crease?
What games are you watching? That's pro celebrity chambermaid you're watching. I know what you get up to now.
Right. On that bombshell note, I think it's the first time that I've been host and a pod has been under an hour, probably. So I'll just say a big thank you to both Alan and Stewart for coming on and trying to make sense of that madness. There's no way that we can explain what the hell is happening at Ibrox at the moment. So hopefully, at least it's been a change from the doom and gloom, and we'll start the Gersnet Cricket Podcast again soon. Stuart, thanks for coming on, mate.
Just get my top spinner there. Get it going.
Thank you, Alan, for coming on. Cheers, pal.
Yeah, good to see you again, gents. I'm waiting to Google the rules of cricket and sort of figure out what clubs they use and stuff.
Cool. As well,
remember, buy chalk. You'll need it.
As well as being live on YouTube tonight, folks, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms. That's iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, etc. in the coming days. We'll be back on Friday with John and Ben, who are going to be looking ahead to the League Cup match against Hibs, and maybe an announcement during the week if we get lucky. All that's left for me to say is a massive thank you for all those who have been watching live on YouTube, and to anybody that's been listening back. Have a good night.